Today we are reading the final part of Captain Underpants and the Big Bad Battle of the Bionic Booger Boy, Part 1, The Night of the Nasty Nostril Nuggets, by Dav Pilkey. And if you want to read the other parts of this, there are links in the description. Chapter 18, Things Get Bad. In a few hours, the fourth graders were all packed into a hot, stinky factory listening to a boring speech about how trees are turned into tissues. Or something like that. Nobody was paying attention, really, except for Melvin Snedley, who was terrified. His whole body shook and shimmered as the tour took them down the narrow walkways of the noisy industrial plant. Danger! Boring tour ahead. Snotty Bros, a division of Snotco. Finally, the tour ended at the gift shop, where the plant manager, Mr. Snotty, had a surprise for everybody.
Behind the red curtain with black dots on it,
said Mr. Snotty,
is a free gift for each of you.
Mr. Snotty pulled back the curtain to reveal a pile of sample tissue packs.
Help yourself,
said Mr. Snotty.
There's enough for everybody.
No, screamed Melvin.
Me don't like tissues.
Oh. Don't be silly, said Mr. Snotty. Everybody loves tissues, and our tissues are extra absorbent. They really help to wipe out phlegm and mucus. No! Screamed Melvin again.
Tissue is bad magic.
Nonsense, laughed Mr. Snotty. He tossed a couple of sample tissue packs at Melvin. Here you go, young man, he said. Enjoy. The tissue packs flipped through the air and stuck onto Melvin's back. Melvin screamed. His eyes began to glow green as he beat his chest in anger. Suddenly, Melvin's shoulders started to bubble. His chest expanded. The flexogromonic steel in Melvin's endoskeleton flexed and grew. His neck and head widened, and his body swelled to a height of 13 feet. Melvin grabbed the tissue packs in his massive, dripping fingers and flung them to the ground.
Don't make me angry,
Melvin warned.
You don't like me when I'm angry.
Oops, said Mr. Snotty. Oh, you dropped your tissue packs, young fellow. Here, some more for you. Mr. Snotty grabbed 2 giant handfuls of sample tissue packs and tossed them at Melvin. Chapter 19, Things Get Badder. Frantically, Melvin swatted at the 9 new tissue packs stuck to his upper torso as if they were a swarm of stinging bumblebees. He stomped his giant spiked feet and thrashed about violently as his hulking body doubled, then tripled in size. Melvin kicked and punched the walls of the gift shop as he let out a terrifying, blood-curdling cry.
Well, there's no need to cry, little man, said Mr. Snotty. Here, have some more tissues to dry those tears.
As he tossed several more sample packs at Melvin. As you might have noticed by now, Mr. Snotty wasn't exactly the brightest bulb on the Hanukkah tree. What happened next could only be described as chaos. Once again, Melvin's massive body tripled in size. By now, Melvin was roaring and kicking and knocking over giant machines. Children screamed and ran. Mr. Snotty thought it might help matters if he could just give Melvin some more tissues. But before he could, a drop of mucus the size of a bathtub dripped from Melvin's massive nose and splashed down on Mr. Snotty, gluing him to the floor. Splat! Ooh! George and Harold hid behind the red curtain with black dots on it as Melvin crashed through the roof of the factory. Ear-piercing roars bellowed out of his gigantic oozing mouth as he kicked down the walls of the factory and tossed heavy machinery into the parking lot. Mr. Krupp and Miss Enthrope tried their best to get the situation under control, but they weren't having any luck, or much luck.
Hey, Bub, shouted Mr. Krupp. I've had just about enough of your shenanigans.
You're gonna spend the afternoon in detention if you don't settle down, young man,
shouted Miss Enthrope. Suddenly, Melvin reached down and grabbed Misanthrope in his massive metal fist.
Help me!
She screamed.
Somebody save me!
Said Mr. Krupp nervously. I'll go get somebody. Oh, get some help. Mr. Krupp ran and hid with George and Harold behind the red curtain with the black dots on it.
Hey, I thought you were going to go get some help, said Harold.
Well, not today, said Mr. Krupp. You know, said George, there's only one person who can help Misanthrope right now. Well, who's that? Asked Mr. Krupp. Chapter 20, Captain Underpants. That's who. As much as George and Harold hated to do it, they decided it was time to send in Captain Underpants to save the day. George snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the terror and panic that Mr. Krupp had been experiencing completely vanished. A wild, silly grin spread across his face as he leaped to his feet and ripped off his outer clothing and toupee. Mr. Krupp's transformation into Captain Underpants was almost complete. The only thing he was missing was a cape.
Gee, he said, I sure wish I could find a red curtain with black dots on it.
Hey, said George as he pointed to the red curtain with black dots on it. Here's a red curtain with black dots on it.
Whoa, what a completely unexpected coincidence, said Captain Underpants as he grabbed the latest in a series of convoluted plot devices and tied it around his neck. By this time, Melvin had stomped his way out of the factory and into the downtown area, leaving behind a twisted path of mucus-coated destruction. Captain Underpants flew into the air, following the trail of terror until he was face to face with the snot-spewing cyborg. I order you to stop, said Captain Underpants, in the name of all that is pre-shrunk and cottony.
Melvin did not listen. Captain Underpants had no choice but to fight the boogery behemoth, but first he needed to save Misanthrope. Quickly, our hero flew to Edith's side, grabbing her hands and pulled firmly. The slimy phlegm that covered Melvin's gigantic fists was strong and gluey, but it was no match for wedgie power. Captain Underpants pulled and pulled until Misanthrope became completely dislodged with a noisy, wet, disgusting sound. Note, please feel free to make the noisy, wet, disgusting sound of your choice to emphasize the intense drama of this gripping paragraph.
I'm free, cried
Misanthrope.
Let's get the heck out of here.
Suddenly, the Bionic Booger Boy reached down and grabbed Captain Underpants by the cape. The monster held on tightly with his gigantic, gooey, robotic fingers.
Ack! cried Captain Underpants. He's got my cape! He's got my cape!
Well, just untie it,
screamed Misanthrope.
Let's go! Let's go!
But I can't fight crime without my cape,
cried Captain Underpants.
Forget your stupid cape,
Edith screamed.
Just save me, you idiot.
Chapter 21, You Can't Have Your Cape, and Edith too. As anybody will tell you, no superhero is complete without a cape. I mean, without a cape, a superhero is just a guy wearing fancy underwear, or in this case, not so fancy underwear. But Captain Underpants knew what had to be done. He reached up with his free hand and courageously untied his cape, valiantly sacrificing his aesthetic integrity to save the life of a mere mortal being. Captain Underpants and Misanthrope were now free, but they weren't safe yet. The Bionic Booger Boy swung at our hero with all his might. Captain Underpants weaved around Melvin's frantic, flying, flim-flinging fists as he tried to find a safe place to land. Suddenly, Captain Underpants' 100% cotton-powered vision spotted George and Harold miles away. With lightning speed, he flew down to meet the boys.
George and Harold, said Captain Underpants, you've got to keep this woman safe while I destroy that robotic slime ball.
Okay, said Harold, But hurry up. Here he comes.
Wait,
cried Miss Anthrope.
I didn't get a chance to say thank you.
She turned and kissed Captain Underpants all over his face with wet, drooly smooches.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
she said between each sloppy kiss. Oh, yuck, said Harold. I sure hope she doesn't thank us, said George. When Miss Anthrope had finished slobbering all over Captain Underpants' face, she gave him a great big hug for good luck.
Now go get him, Tiger,
she said coyly. But Captain Underpants didn't move. He just stood there staring blankly into space. Off in the distance, George and Harold could hear the Bionic Booger Boy approaching. Each thundering footstep brought the horrible beast closer and closer until at last he stood towering above them, panting heavily and dripping profanely. Miss Anthrope screamed and ran away.
Hurry, Captain Underpants, cried Harold. Do something.
Yeah, cried George. Kick his hiney, kick his hiney. But Captain Underpants didn't move. He didn't fight. He didn't fly. He didn't kick anybody's hiney. In fact, the only thing he did was to get very, very angry. What the heck is going on here, Bubs? He screamed. And why am I standing here in my underwear? George and Harold didn't like the sound of that. Chapter 22, Welcome Back, Crupper. If you read the comic on page 7 of this novel, then you know what happens whenever Captain Underpants gets water on his head. Unfortunately, Miss Anthrope's wet, slobbery kisses had produced the same effect. Captain Underpants had been turned back into Mr. Krupp, and now he was about to be turned into lunch. Quickly, George and Harold began frantically snapping their fingers.
Snap, 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 snap.
Again and again they snapped, but Mr. Krupp's face was still slimy and wet with gooey kiss juice, and the snaps were having no effect at all. The mighty mucus monster shoved Mr. Krupp into his gummy mouth and swallowed him whole. And then he came after George and Harold. "Help!" screamed George.
"We're doomed!"
screamed Harold. Chapter 23, Sulu Saves the Day. Halfway across the city, a plucky little hamster with bionic ears heard the terrified cry of his two best pals. Quickly, Sulu jumped out of his exercise wheel and crashed through the side of his plastic cage. Then, with a mighty leap, he bounded from the window of George and Harold's treehouse. At that very moment, Melvin was dangling George and Harold high above his mouth. Laughed the Bionic Booger Boy. "Me got you at last." "Well, goodbye, Harold," said George.
"See you later, pal," said Harold. "It was fun while it lasted."
Finally, Melvin let go of George and Harold. The two boys screamed as they fell face first into the gooey, gaping mouth of the swoosh. The next thing George and Harold knew, they were flying sideways at an incredible speed. Everything around them was a blur of motion except for the sight of their little buddy Sulu, who had literally grabbed them from the murky mouth of death at the very last second. "Oh, attaboy," cried George.
"Hooray for Sulu,"
cried Harold. Sulu set George and Harold down on the roof of the distant building and then returned to the scene of the crime. He grabbed a few oversized novelty items from the tops of some warehouses and turned to face his mortal enemy, the Cane Warehouse, Boxing Glove City, and Denture Emporium. Chapter 24, the incredibly graphic violence chapter. Part 2. Warning, the following stunts were performed on closed streets by a highly trained professional hamster. To avoid injury, please do not grab oversized novelty items from the tops of warehouse and beat up a giant monster with them. All right, here we go. Cane tops keep falling on my head. Cane tops keep falling, boom, on my head, boom. Boom.
Squish, squish.
Flip-o-rama number... Oh, wait. Was that 2? Yes, it was. Okay. Yummy, yummy, yummy. I got glove in my tummy. Boom. Squah. Boom. Squah. Boom. Squah. What song do you think's going to be parodied next? A Hard Day's Bite. Ooh. Squamp. Ooh. Squamp. Wah. Ooh. Squamp. Wah. There we go. Chapter 25, How to Reverse the Effects of a Combinotron 2000 in One Easy Step. The Bionic Booger Boy was defeated. He flopped unconscious into a giant boogery blob that spread across several city blocks and nearly 4 whole pages as reporters surrounded his massive oozing body. Soon, Melvin's mother and father showed up with the Combinotron 2000.
We saw what was happening on the news, they said, and we want the world to know that we're going to create a new machine that will reverse the process that turned our son into this monster. If we work together, it should only take a few months to build.
Why didn't you guys just take the batteries out of the Combino thingy and switch them around? Said George. Wouldn't that reverse the machine's effects? Well, laughed Melvin's father, obviously you don't know anything about science, little boy. You can't expect to reverse the effects of a highly complex cellular molecularizing combinotron just by switching the batteries around. That type of thing only happens in obnoxious children's books. Said George self-consciously. Well, why don't you just give it a try anyways? All right, said Mr. Snedley, rolling his eyes and smirking. He quickly switched the batteries around and powered up the machine. But I'm only doing this to prove a point to you kids. It's not gonna work. No way. Not in a million years, and anybody who thinks it might is a complete idiot. It goes against all the popular laws of logic and science. He aimed the newly reconfigured Combinotron 2000 at his son and fired. Chapter 26... Bzzzt. Suddenly, there was a terrific explosion. The Bionic Booger Boy burst into 3 huge chunks of glistening snot and twisted metal, which smacked into 3 nearby buildings and stuck like glue. In the center of the explosion, surrounded by smoke, stood Mr. Krupp and Melvin. Well, what do you know, said Mr. Snedley. My idea worked. George and Harold rolled their eyes.
Now step aside, kiddies,
said Miss Snedley as the 2 scientists marched off to tell the reporters all about their brilliant and inspirational scientific breakthrough. But as the smoke around Mr. Krupp and Melvin began to clear, it became obvious that they were not quite back to normal. Apparently, the new reconfigured Combinotron 2000 had accidentally morphed Mr. Krupp and Melvin together. Don't worry, told the reporter. I'll need to do this zap them one more time. That should set everything straight. He fired the Combinotron 2000 again and prepared to blast away. Sure hope this separates their bodies, said George. Me too, said Harold. Bzzzt. Chapter 27, to make a long story short, it did. Bing! Chapter 28, a happy ending. You know something, said George. This is the first time one of our books actually had a happy ending.
You know, you're right, said Harold. Usually they end with me screaming, oh no, and you screaming, here we go again. But we got lucky this time, I guess.
What do you mean lucky? Said Mr. Krupp. It was my invention that saved the world. You guys are so immature. Huh? Said George. I want to see you... how would this work?
I want to see you both of you bubs in my office pronto, yelled Melvin. I'm going to punish you boys so bad, your kids will be bored with detention.
What? Said Harold.
Suddenly, a giant, extendable auto claw reached out from one of the 3 huge chunks of boogers. It grabbed the Combinotron 2000 out of Snedley's hands and smashed it to smithereens on the ground. Mr. and Mrs. Snedley ran away screaming as the 3 humongous robot booger chunks came to life. Slowly, they began dripping down the sides of the buildings, each one energizing itself with a single twin-turbo 9000 SP5 Kung Fu titanium lithium alloy processor. As the huge booger chunks oozed closer and closer, they began spouting strange-looking metallic eyeballs and huge, menacing robotic limbs. Suddenly, the 3 ridiculous robo-boogers leaped towards George, Harold, Sulu, Mr. Krupp, and Melvin, and the chase was on.
"Oh, no!" screamed Harold.
"Here we go again," screamed George. And that is the end. We will read part 2 of this later. Good night. I love you.